We begin this Sunday morning with a Fox News alert. A Chinese warship coming within 150 yards of a U.S. destroyer in the Taiwan Strait. In the latest Chinese provocation in the region, U.S. Indo-Pacific Command slamming their Chinese counterparts for maneuvering in an unsafe manner.
China says it's monitored the two ships but made no mention of the close call. This comes days after a Chinese fighter jet did its own unnecessary aggressive maneuver by buzzing around an American recon plane.
All this as the CCP cracks down on activists, as today marks the 34th anniversary of the Tiananmen Square massacre. 8 people were detained accused of disrupting order in public space. Hong Kong used to host some of the biggest vigils to honor those killed in the infamous pro-democracy demonstration. Instead, this year, a pro-Beijing carnival was held where those vigils used to take place. Good morning and welcome to this edition of Fox and Friends on this Sunday morning. Scary tensions there in China. This just highlights the need for prudence, judgment, and the right leadership in the United States of America.
No, that's exactly right. These provocations are not by accident. The Chinese see their opportunity. You look at Hong Kong. Their takeover there was slow and steady and now complete, which means remembrances of Tiananmen Square are no longer tolerated. And they want Taiwan across that strait. Those are international waters where that close call occurred. But make no mistake about it, these Chinese warships know exactly where they're going and exactly who's on the other side.
I think seeing what's happening in Hong Kong, that it used to be the place where people honored and commemorated what happened, the bravery of Tiananmen Square, and now there's nothing except pro-CCP rallies. This should make everyone wake up. Wherever China goes, this is what will happen. And by the way, we're seeing the Chinification of America here, where protests and dissent and censorship are on the rise as well. So, something to really keep an eye on.
And Will, you mentioned leadership and what different leadership means when it comes to foreign crises. Well, Donald Trump was on with Sean Hannity on Thursday night in Iowa, and he talked about why these things are happening. Take a listen.
I said, President, don't do it with Taiwan. Don't even think about doing it with Taiwan. He was never going to do it. And now he's circling, ships are circling, planes are flying over the top. 28 bombers last week went right over the middle of it. A lot of stuff going on. And a lot of this has to do also with the fact that we were so incompetent in the way we left Afghanistan. It was so, I think it was the most embarrassing and most incompetent moment in the history of our country.
Yeah, and he's right about that. And I think this whole presidential election that we're coming into is going to be a test of strength. Who do we think is strong enough to stand up to what you're seeing right there, which is an army determined to take over?
He was right about that. He was right about Ukraine and the invasion that, under Obama,
yes,
under Biden, not under Trump. When you look a foreign leader in the eye and say, don't do it because it'll pay, that matters. And we know in multiple instances that that's what Donald Trump did.
It absolutely matters. It's the nature of international politics, and it's not capable of being ignored, as you just pointed out, Pete. What's happened in the last couple of years? Yes, during the Obama administration, but in the last couple of years, China in an aggressive stance, Russia on the march in Ukraine, the world senses its moment.
Do you remember in the summer of 2020 in Hong Kong?
Was that the summer of love?
That was the summer of love. And they were burning flags and tearing down our cities here. But over in Hong Kong, they were waving hundreds and hundreds of American flags. Those were the protesters I was most interested in watching that summer. And now, where are they? Many of them imprisoned, disappeared, and now fake, pro-China astroturf type of
And if
protest.
there were a conflict, you wonder about the competency of our military leadership, too, right now. You don't want to have to worry about that, but they've been distracted by a lot of other priorities, not necessarily readiness.
Absolutely.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.